Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is political correctness. So we get to look at the social pressures to kind of toe the popular line and the consequences of speaking out and self-censorship. So should be a stimulating conversation. You know me, I like to poke the bear. So before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding into your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any negativity, stress, fatigue, tension. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, energizing, electrifying all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, lighting you up from the inside out. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining stress, tension, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together. Softly, softly, softly rub your fingers against your palms to feel the deliciousness of that sensation and to bring you present right here, right now, in these wonderful bodies that we have to live through. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Today we get to talk about political correctness and what does that look like? You know, I think when in an increasingly polarized culture about so many things, we often find ourselves walking a tightrope and self-censoring because there is danger to speaking out sometimes, because if we speak out, then we incur the wrath of masses of people, known or unknown, potentially. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is finding a way to hold ideas with open hand. And I think that we get to embrace this evolutionary possibility for ourselves and our culture. Good afternoon, Pat. So good to have you here with us. Welcome, welcome. We're talking today about political correctness and the choice that we make oftentimes to self-censor or to be very careful about our words. I know that there have been certain topics that we've brought up in this venue that I have been very cautious about the way that I speak of them. And part of it is not just self-censoring, but a concern about actual censoring. You know, that there is a bunch of censorship that is occurring these days, and that in itself is a concern. So we're walking a delicate line, so many of us, and I think that when that is the case, we get to look at what it takes to entertain viewpoints that don't agree with our own, and building bridges, you know, holding both and to recognize that things are not necessarily black and white. And I think that we get to acclimate ourselves more to nuance, to communicating more deeply, more effectively. I have a friend who, yeah, I don't know if I can even, I don't know if I can discuss this really. Yeah, so here I am right in the midst of this self-censorship, like trying to determine what is okay to say and what isn't okay to say if I want this post to remain available to you. So I just have a growing concern about what's happening in our ability to have choice and to communicate our well-considered decisions. Let's just talk about diet, for example. If I guess there are nutritional guidelines that are published by the government, and so many of us have done all kinds of research about nutrition and about different ways of nourishing ourselves that, with different diets and different disciplines. And many of us have schooled ourselves in all kinds of information from all kinds of reputable sources about nutrition and have made our individual choices. And what if not only was the government providing nutritional guidelines, but the government was providing nutritional mandates to say, this is how you need to eat. And those guidelines, based on your research, were not so effective for you personally. And in your choice to follow your nutritional guidelines that you have researched and responsibly chosen, what if you were being told that that's not an okay choice, that you needed to comply with this mandate, or you would not be able to go to restaurants, or you would not be able to go to school, or you would not be able to work at your job. It's there. This is a concern, right? It's a concern when our individual liberties as to what we put in our bodies in terms of nourishment and nutrition and health is co-opted by by an institution, right? And the thing that we get to look at is, we've been talking this week about training fleas and how we become indoctrinated into certain beliefs and practices that then we stop questioning, that we just accept as truth that this is the way things should be. And I think we get to look at this a bit more deeply. It's really not a black and white issue, particularly if, let's say, there were certain vitamins that I was being told I had to take on a regular basis, or I was told, okay, take this vitamin and it's going to be good for you for life. And then it turns out, oh no, you need to take a booster vitamin. And you need to take this booster vitamin maybe every 3 months or maybe every 6 months. And I'm going to track whether or not you've taken that booster vitamin. And if you don't take that booster vitamin, then you're not going to be able to go to restaurants or school or work, for example. And I think it's very, very important to look at where do we say, well, wait a second, this isn't okay. And so in this, to get back to our topic, this is an example of how it can actually be dangerous to be speaking out about things that are important to us. It can be dangerous because we can be calling down a rain of social attack on social media, on other platforms. We can be calling down a rain of physical attack where people actually issue threats, to people's homes and beyond, to where people camp out, for instance. I mean, if we look at, there's so many polarizing issues, it's not an isolated instance. I mean, we can look at racial issues, we can look at reproductive rights issues, we can look at medical issues, we can, there is so much polarity happening. The question is, if we don't speak out, if we don't find ways to communicate with each other reasonably and rationally, if we don't find ways to respect individual rights and the welfare of the collective together, if we don't find a way to hold the both and, we're in deep, deep trouble. And I think that there are lots of indicators that that's what's happening. Hold on one second. Maggie is doing her marauding thing. Sometimes that's the price of having a feathered friend joining us, is that she requires a little bit of monitoring sometimes. So anyway, yeah, I wonder if you have confronted situations where you've spoken out in the face of potential opposition. I read something not that long ago, and I don't know that I'm going to be quoting it accurately, but it was really, really fascinating about how people are kind of wired to agree. And in this study, thank you, Pat says there's a lot of this big brother attitude going on, huge, and it's very alarming. So you know what, I'm gonna forget about this study for a second. Hopefully I'll remember to come back to it. But there was a law just passed in Texas, and it was an anti-abortion law passed in Texas. And the thing about this law that makes it incredibly insidious is that rather than dealing with law enforcement and lawmakers, what it does is it empowers citizens to report other citizens. And this is something that happens in fascistic kinds of environments, to allow other citizens to report on people who perform abortions, but not only perform abortions, but who aid, quote unquote, aid and abet anyone seeking an abortion. So that means, for instance, perchance somebody who would be driving somebody to have an abortion, or somebody who might be advising someone of their options to have an abortion. Now, I can say that it's not a relevant conversation for me personally anymore, but I can say that personal reproductive freedoms of choice have always been something that, again, freedom being one of my highest values, has been a personal choice and should be honored as such, in my opinion. This is my opinion and only my opinion. But I have very strong conviction about that. Good morning, Lisa. Welcome, welcome. So it's interesting, like this is a place where I believe that it's that our individual choice is really critically important and most often not taken lightly, right? And yet here, this law is it is a 6-week abortion law, meaning you can have an abortion up to the 6th week of pregnancy, where people often don't even know that they're pregnant by 6 weeks. So so this, it's insidious in multiple ways. First is that the time frame is a tremendously restrictive time frame. Second, the part that is most horrifying and concerning, because it may set a precedent for other laws that are put in place, is that it is an encouragement for citizens to bring suit against other citizens. So what it's doing is it is creating a big brother environment where people are policing and reporting other people. This is something that happened in Nazi Germany. This is something that was relied upon in that regime. And we get to pay attention to this, people. This is really, really important. So Lisa says, they want the right to choose to get the V, but a woman shouldn't. Such hypocrisy. So I think that we do see hypocrisy, and I also want to be really cautious about painting vast swaths of people with the same brush. That, maybe I believe in the right to reproductive freedoms. I believe in the right to choose. And maybe I also believe in the right to get the V or not. Like we can't assume that it's not, it doesn't serve any of us to paint vast swaths of people with a one brush, because what happens there is that we lose the opportunity for creating communication and communion and connectedness. There's so much divisiveness that exists right now that we get to be vigilant about our projected prejudices, because there are enclaves of groups that, like I have seen that there are enclaves of groups, for instance, that that tend to be anti-choice and also pro-death penalty. So anti-abortion and pro-death penalty. I don't know how to reconcile that, but the same thing with the V and abortion rights. So, and there are groups that hold these collective kinds of perspectives. The thing is that there may be ways when we can create bridges, when we can have conversations. There may be ways that we can at least come to an understanding of each other, that we can find a way to transcend our prejudices. And I am hopeful that that's the case, but I can't say that I've found that. I mean, good morning, Dennis. So good to have you here. We're talking about political correctness and the dangers of speaking out and the importance of speaking out, that we get to have the clarity within ourselves to maintain our center when without attack, to find a place of respectfulness for another person, you know, to be looking at the bigger picture, and to say, for instance, with the example of the vitamins that I talked about, you know, let's say we're told that we have to take this vitamin, and it's recorded, and we have a vitamin passport. And when we have this vitamin passport, then we're told, well, wait a second, now you've got to get a booster vitamin every month. And if your passport goes out of date, then all these restrictions are going to rain down on you. I mean, it's different, you know, like when you first thought that you were just taking the one vitamin, it was like, okay, I'll do that. I'm good with that. You know, I believe that might be helpful to me. But then all of a sudden, now you have to take a vitamin booster every 3 months, and maybe now you have to take it every month, and your papers are going to be updated accordingly, and your rights and your access to services are going to be restricted based on that. What does that look like? And is it something that you still feel aligned with? Is it something that's still okay? You know, like, where is the line? So Lisa says, abortion is not for me, but I should have the right to choose. I'm with you, Lisa. That's my perspective as well. I'm old enough to remember women getting illegal abortions and dying. It was awful. SCOTUS is on a slippery slope. I agree 100%. The abortion law in Texas is meeting with a lot of protest, but if and when it goes to the Supreme Court, we have a very conservative Supreme Court, and we get to, as you said, SCOTUS is on a slippery slope. So it's a little more than a little concerning. Rosalind says, with 9/11 anniversary approaching, anti-government, anti-authority can now be categorized as domestic terrorism and national threat per an August 13th, 2021 bulletin issued by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Well, that is pretty concerning, Rosalind. I wasn't aware of this, but the thing that is concerning about that is what gets interpreted as anti-government and anti-authority, right? Like, we are sliding into some scary territory at a pretty rapid rate. And we get to look at these signals of the rise of authoritarianism. And it's really, really important. And that's where this whole issue of political correctness needs to be addressed, and what we're seeing is, if what you're saying is so, Rosalind, that there's even more potential danger to speaking out, because who's going to decide what's anti-government, what's anti-authority? And as we're having laws that are enabling people to report on other people and bring litigation against people, whether it's justified or not, there's a political structure in play that can be really, really ominous. And Lisa says Texas is the first step to overturning Roe versus Wade. Actually, it's not the first step, unfortunately. It is a huge step, but the appointment to the Supreme Court of some of the justices were earlier steps toward that, for sure. And there have been all kinds of abortion laws or anti-abortion laws that have been being developed or entrenched for years, leading up to the extreme of this law in Texas. And it is something that is alarm worthy, because what we're doing is we are regulating people's rights to their own bodies. And this is a precedent then that goes into this whole V conversation, is, do I have the right to make choices about my body? And I know that part of the conversation is social well-being and impacting the well-being of the greater whole. And we get to look at this very, very, very carefully, because again, it's a slippery slope. If we talk about these vitamin passports, for instance, what does it look like when booster vitamins get legislated? What does it look like when we are constantly under the eye of a power that has the capacity and the legal strength to prohibit access to fundamental services potentially? This is important. This is time for us to wake up and speak up. This is time to not be politically correct. This is time to be standing up, because if not now, it's got potential to be too late. This is serious stuff, people, really. Rosalind posted the National Terrorism Advisory System Bulletin from August 13th, 2021 from Homeland Security. Everybody, I'm going to check out that link, and I would suggest that you might want to be doing that as well, to be looking at. Okay, so I'm going to read the summary to us. The Secretary of Homeland Security has issued a new terrorism advisory system bulletin regarding the current heightened threat environment across the United States. The Homeland continues to face a diverse and challenging threat environment leading up to and following the 20th anniversary of the September 11th, 2001 attacks, as well religious holidays we assess could serve as a catalyst for acts of targeted violence. Okay, so the anniversary of September 11th and upcoming religious holidays could serve as a catalyst for acts of targeted violence. These threats include those posed by domestic terrorists, individuals and groups engaged in grievance-based violence, and those inspired or motivated by foreign terrorists and other malign foreign influences. These actors are increasingly exploiting online forums to influence and spread violent, extremist narratives and promote violent activity. Such threats are also exacerbated by impacts of the ongoing global pandemic, including grievances over public health safety measures and perceived government restrictions. Wow. So interesting. I would suggest to everyone that you read the rest of that bulletin. Thank you for that, Rosalind. There's a lot in there, right? There are extremist groups. We can look at what happened in the Capitol on January 6th. And there are these groups that are willing to resort to violence. I guess the question is, where is the line? You know, where is the line between free speech and domestic being characterized as a domestic terrorist? I don't know. I have a concern because I've seen when we saw what was happening with Black Lives Matters demonstrations that were often very peaceful, devolving into attacks from authorities, you know, or accelerated violence through the interaction of authorities. This is something that we get to pay attention to and stand up around, you know, that we get to speak out, you know, to exercise our rights of free speech while we still have them. And yeah, that's scary stuff, Rosalind. I appreciate you sharing it. And I hope that in reading it, we get to find that there is a clear line between our rights to protest and what is interpreted as violence. I don't know what to say. You know, I think that I understand the pressures to be politically correct. And I also know that that is the political correctness and the polite conversation is potentially something that is where we're kind of self-limiting in our ability to create a positive influence on the trend of things. So I don't mean to be a downer, but I think that this is a call to action, a call to speaking out, a call to being in touch with our legislators, to being in touch with our organizations, that we get to participate in the direction of our country, and as responsible citizens. That's part of our mandate, you know, is to be participating members of our society. And I really do believe that also means building bridges and finding ways to communicate with and beyond our differences, to find a way to come to some kind of respectful consensus. I don't know. I have moments when I don't know if that's possible. And we need to try. We need to try. So yeah, let's look at the bigger picture. Let's look at what it means to surrender our rights, our autonomy, you know, to acquiesce to tracking and yeah. So I've said it. I've said it. And so maybe I'm not being politically correct, but I think that this is a warning flag for all of us. And I don't, regardless of what your position is on the given issues, recognize that there is a larger collective and a larger freedom that is at stake here for everyone, regardless of our beliefs. And that if there is a mandated control of one, that mandated control extends to the many. And Kimberly, good morning, good morning. It's been an intense conversation this morning that you're now joining, but you might want to go back and listen. And this is a call to action, a call for all of us to educate ourselves, to be communicating responsibly and from a place of being informed and looking at the bigger picture. Because whether I agree or not that you should or shouldn't be doing something, when we start looking at the way that should and shouldn't is enforced, we get to look at how it potentially impacts everybody down the line, and look at what it means to tacitly comply with laws and mandates without objection, that are really that have very, very dark consequences for the group, the society as a whole. And yeah, so not the lightest morning, but there are causes for us all to be waking up and exercising our rights to freedom of speech and peaceful protest. And yeah, so the future is ours to make. And with that, that's it for this morning. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I go live each weekday morning here on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page. I invite you to enjoy the remarkable community here on Enlightened World Network. I don't know that anybody is, that other folks are speaking out about this in this way, but Rosalind says, I want to be healthy and free. So do I. So do I. And I think that is probably the call that most of us align with, is that we all want to be healthy and free. And that may look different ways to different people. However, and we get to educate ourselves around that, and also educate our lawmakers, and learn more. And if it, yeah, I mean, it's a hairy topic. It's a really hairy topic, and I would love to be able to just have a purely candid conversation about it. And unfortunately, the atmosphere is such that we are being constrained to limit our own conversation even. And I'm suggesting that there are ways that we can have these conversations that are responsible and respectful. And yeah, sometimes we get to choose the higher value. Anyway, I think that's it for today. Every now and then we just dive into the intensity of what's happening. maybe we could create an offline forum to have these conversations and to create a coalition of understanding, which would be awesome. Oh, awesome. So Healthy and Free is on Telegram. Thank you, Rosalind. That sounds like a really cool place to be able to have some of these conversations. I just went there and it says healthyandfree.com. It went to a website. It's not on Telegram. So I guess we have to get on Telegram and then look for Healthy and Free. Okay, it's US, healthyandfree.us. Awesome. And Dennis says, I concur with anyone who says PC is run amok. I agree. What it is an atmosphere of fear. And, we walk a delicate line, and that in and of itself is concerning, right? That we have to be careful, especially in this particular venue, be alert to what words we use and what kinds of even what kinds of resources and information is available. It's crazy. It's just crazy. Anyway, with that, we will call it a day, and I have so much love for you and appreciation, and I'm so grateful to having the opportunity to be talking about the things that we do together, and it means the world, and we get to keep talking, and it's so important. And love and peace to you too, Kimberly, and to all of us. We get to preserve that. Freedom is a privilege. And we say in this country it's a right, but that right is being challenged on so many fronts. And we get to preserve it. So much love to you all. Until next